This week's portion of Beshalach describes so vividly and so dramatically the scene that took place prior to the splitting of the sea when we were pursued by the Egyptians. The raging waters were before us. The Egyptians were in hot pursuit behind us. And the Torah says we lifted our eyes and we saw that the mighty Egyptian army was pursuing us. And what should we do? Help, Hashem. We called out to Hashem. The Torah says, by Yitzaku, we cried out to Hashem. So the great commentary Rashi explains, fantastic, quotes a medrash. On these words, and we cried out to Hashem, Rashi says, Tafsu v'amunas v'umnus avoseim, that we grabbed on to the artwork, to the craft of our forefathers. Prayer is called a craft. Prayer is called an artwork. Just like an artwork, a profession, whatever it is, whatever the art is, whatever the profession is, you have to work at it. You have to prepare for it. You have to look at it at this angle, and this angle, and this angle. Prayer is something that requires focus and requires work and requires talent. But what Rashi is telling us is that we all the Jewish people have the talent of prayer. We have this craft. It's inherited. It's part of us. And at the splitting of the sea, that's it. Our forefathers prayed. We're going to call out to God in prayer. This is a fantastic eye-opener for us, because we all in our lives, in the course of our lives, go through difficult situations, and sometimes they seem to be hopeless. Now, we could throw up our hands in despair and just naturally, maybe first impression, where is God? God has left me. Where is God? And there could be a different response. That instead of being overwhelmed, instead of being so distraught that we cannot speak, the Torah is telling us, and Rashi is teaching us, that we have that craft within us. We have the ability, it's inherited, it's inherent within us. We have the ability to turn to God in prayer and use that ability and make that prayer a most beautiful, beautiful prayer and come close to God, even and especially in a time of great despair. There's another point that Rabbi Yerucham mentions in the analogy of prayer to an art, to a craft, and this statement that our forefathers grabbed on to the craft of the Jews, our ancestors, when we left Egypt, grabbed on to the craft of their forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The examples that Rashi brings for Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was Abraham returned to his place. He went to the place where he prayed every day. Isaac went out to pray in the fields. Jacob prayed before he went to sleep. These were normal times where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob prayed. And the lesson, the message is that our ancestors, our forefathers and mothers, they prayed even in normal times. They realized that absolutely everything is from Hashem. And even when things seem to be going great, when things seem to be going fantastic, they called out to Hashem. And that ingrained within themselves and within the future generations, this connection to Hashem. So there are two giant messages here among the multiple messages, the multiple faceted, beautiful messages there are in any message in any lesson in the Torah. Two messages here. One, that when in times of when everything seems to be going wrong, and we have the ability to throw up our hands and say, okay, we're disconnected from God, but we have that innate, inherited ability just to come back to the craft of our forefathers and really, really connect to Hashem. The other message is that when everything is going great, that too is a time to open our hearts and connect to Hashem. And if we do that, if we can do that, because our ancestors showed us and taught us that there is nothing in the world that happens to the world, nothing that happens to us without Hashem. So even in the greatest times, when things seems to be going great, it's time to connect to Hashem. And the third thing, prayer is an art work, meaning it requires effort, it requires thought, and requires ability. We have it within us. Let's cherish it and let's use it and connect to Hashem in every opportunity of our lives. Have a beautiful, magnificent Shabbos.